Hey there, neighbors and naysayers. June 14th, 2025. Happy, I believe this is President Trump's birthday. Also, happy Flag Day to everyone. Some of you may or may not know this, but yours truly wrote a poem in the 4th grade about Flag Day. And it got published in a book. I don't remember anything about it at this point. I just remember that it got published somehow. So I was an author at one point. Rain last night, muddy. This field was so thick with grass that I turned the four-wheeler on and four-wheel drive to get through it before the cows grazed it, just to build these fences. And I guess thought for today, I for years have used this as my tool to most push down this tall grass and reset it to keep it from going to seed. But we're now at a point where it's so thick that the cows are tromping it, and we can't get them to really eat all of them. I mean, not that we ever could get them to eat all of it, but like there's a massive amount. It's like walking on a mattress out there because it's all been mashed down. And I still think that's good, but I constantly question what I do. And as we move into soil health and think about soil health, I think, are we putting too much down? Are we putting too much down to get growth again, to get the full potential of growth this year? Yeah, it's feeding it again, and next year we get a good growth again. I don't know. It's always a question. And then, you factor in carbon and nitrogen ratios. Do you have enough here to get it to break down? All those things. I don't know. I don't know the answer to it. You think you're on the right path, and then something happens and it shows you that you're not on the right path. And I'm always looking for those watershed moments of what is right and what is not right. And I still think that if we looked at the way the buffalo would have gone across the plains, we'd see the same thing. They're going to mash down a bunch of it, but they're going to eat a bunch of it in tight herd-packed groups. So I still think we're where we ought to be. But I brought up a question this morning as we were talking. I said, but the thing we have to remember is we're trying to mimic the buffalo here that would have been in Iowa, North Dakota, and South Dakota. We're in the eastern woodlands. We're in the foothills of the Appalachians. This was not this way. I mean, it's constantly trying to revert itself back to timber. So managing the soil the way that, or managing the forage and soil and ecosystem the way that was managed may or may not be the correct way to do it. We don't know. I mean, we're never going to know. It's all a matter of trial and error and keeping on going. For now, this works for me, and I can't think of any other better way. The only other better way to get this back manageable is to make it for hay, or just mow it down, which is going to create the same problem as the cows, to make it for hay. You're stealing nutrients off of it. And we could do a little bit of both, I guess, and make it work too. There's the other part of this is, we could fence them down really tight and give them 5 foot at a time and make them clean it all and sort of total grazing, which I don't like, and it would take us forever to get around the farm, and some of it would be dried down and mature by then. And I've done that in past years, and it seemed like it worked okay too. I don't know. There's a million different questions here of how it could be done, and just finding the right answer. I know what hasn't worked, and long term I will see how this goes. I really want to take a video here just because I want this to sort of document what I'm seeing. And I have never been in, I mean, we fed hay in this field 3, 4, 5 years ago, so it may have got manure last year, year before, but I never have seen it this thick. This, of course, was, there was a bank barn that sat here long before I was around. I remember it being in ruin. We didn't own the property at the time, the coal company did, so, I mean, that's why it's in ruin. But my great Uncle Frank owned this farm, and this was overgrazed forever and ever and ever, and then now it's back, and this is the thickest I've ever seen it. I mean, 3 years ago I thought we ruined this field by feeding in it, and here we are back where we are. It may have been more than 3 years ago, I don't know. It was the last time we got dry, and I could go back and find that. But it's just a massive amount of forage. Like, you just can't believe what we're able to attain here. And this is what just leads into the fact that um, that closed loop system I talked about, where we can make some hay. And in a field like this, I mean, this is 3 acres, and we could have made probably half of our need for the winter off of this one field and went around. So this is where that closed loop making hay on it is sort of our ecosystem. And I guess as I think deeper in that, I tend to go toward what is the natural, but we also have to remember sometimes that, hey folks, this ain't normal. Nature didn't produce massive amounts of meat to feed massive amounts of people. And I'm not one of those people that says farmers have to feed the world. That's not my thing. But we also have to realize it ain't natural. It's not natural to breed an animal for meat production. Nature didn't breed for meat production. Nature bred for survival and the survival of the ecosystem. So, all I have to do is point to pigs and say, where do they fit in the system? Maybe 5 pigs out here would fit in the ecosystem, but not 500. And that's just the way it is. So we have to make that system fit somehow and make them find their way. So, sometimes it's not the natural, sometimes it's the our natural, sometimes it's the our way to make the system better that we have to be looking at. I still tend to go toward the natural. I'm not a fan of feeding grain to herbivores. I'm not a fan of feeding silage to herbivores, to be honest, because I battled acid reflux in my life, and I just can't imagine giving all those cows acid forage that's going to screw up their stomach a little bit. I don't think we do enough thought or enough research on that. I know it's hard to make dry hay in eastern Ohio without making silage bales, but I shun it. I don't like to do it because I don't want to think about how much that's going to affect our forage growth and our forage digestion in the cows. But anyway, really dense forage packed on top of the ground. Of course, this field's worse because this is where they had to enter this field, so we just had to get them started. That field is out, of course, near the road, so I waited until I was going to be here for the day, so in case a calf gets pushed through the fence, I'm here to deal with it. If I go behind me, this is what they were on last night and 2 nights ago, I guess both. And then you can see the forage face as we go forward. Still pretty thick, but they're eating more of it because we're giving them less of it. So with that, I'll say, we'll see you next time.